Welcome to the Wally Show Aftercast, the stuff we did not get to during the course of the show today, including the kind of side story that for some people is a main story in the shooting that occurred in Nashville. And we're not just talking about this today because it happened in Nashville, because the reality is, like, when you live in a different state and it didn't happen where you live, it doesn't really affect you, and you're not there, and the odds of knowing somebody is way low, and I get that, and that's why we don't just talk about things that happen because they happen near us. But the story is interesting in the sense that there's a couple different nuances to this. I mean, school shootings are horrible, and this one is just really bizarre because the lady who did it, that's the first problem, is it doesn't match up with the stereotype of an active shooter. It was a woman. I guess she went to the school. It was Covenant School in Nashville when she was little, and she returns to this school armed with assault rifles, handgun. And originally they had been reporting that she entered the school through a unlocked door, which was not true. She actually shot her way through a door, which is like, wow, there's video of that. You're like, holy cow. And then she went in, did what she did, the horrific act, shot at police from outside, and they ended this whole thing. Sadly, 6 people lost their lives, 3 children at 9 years old each, and then 3 faculty members and a janitor there, so 3 total, but so 6 in total. But it was crazy that this whole thing all unfolded in 14 minutes. From the time that they got the first call, officers were there, and they shot her within 14 minutes, which had to be really surreal for them, I would imagine, because you walk in, you're trained to deal with this, you go and you hear the shots, you know what you need to do. And I'm curious if there was a brief moment where they turn the corner, they see the person with guns, and is that all they saw was person with gun, take them down? Or did they see person with gun, woman, wait a minute, this is weird. Is this the person, because it's not normal. Was there a hesitation, or this is just it? Person with gun, take them down, and I'd love to talk to that person. Yeah,
we just won't ever know.
Yeah.
There was one thing that I was reading about, and I'm still trying to understand, because to me, there is confusion on whether this person is considered like transgender. They were born a woman or a man, and what do they go as?
Right.
And then there's confusion on what kind of hormones transgender people take. Because there was one thing that I read that was like, if this person is transgender, there's a chance that they were taking some kind of testosterone medication to help them build testosterone. If that's the case, testosterone, if not used wisely, is known to cause aggression in people.
Right.
And so it's going to be interesting to see if they find some link to that.
I think that
because, like you said, women are not known for
it doesn't fit the profile.
But I don't know if it was this person was born a woman or if this person identifies as a woman.
No, I did the research because I know there was some confusion. This person was born a woman. And so when the officers were doing press things about her, they're like, she, and then they tried to catch themselves because on social media, this person claimed to be trans and identified as a man. My pronouns are wow. And so you got a broken person, obviously, first and foremost. But the thing about it, which was really bothersome, is like the first article I read from ABC News was all about this. And this person was so kind and loving, and they're not saying anything bad about this person and stuff and like that, because they can't, because it's a trans person and fitting their narrative of the world. You can't say anything bad about a trans person. Trans people get a pass. They've never done anything wrong in their lives, because if you do that, then you're saying that all trans people are bad, which is not true, and so, but they can't do that. And so they're trying to find the good in this thing, and where could we have gone wrong, and blah, blah, blah. And they're focusing on this person's identity or the thing that they identify as, and they're missing the point. This person murdered 3 innocent children. This person murdered 3 innocent adults. Like, I don't care what their gender is. I don't care what they identify as or all the messed up, stupid stuff of this world. But they were focused more on that. News people stammering and clamoring, trying not to offend the LGBTQ trans community as they walk through this story, because they don't, God forbid you do that, because that's way worse than murdering children, getting someone's pronoun wrong. Oh, for the love, we don't want to deal with that headache and that issue because we might hurt somebody's feelings. It's crazy. It's lunacy that we live in that world where that was the major part of this story, and that was the thing that people were like, well, how do we do this? How do we navigate this? No, it's a broken person that created an atrocity and a horrible act, a cowardly act, and was ultimately, held accountable for it, by policemen doing their job. And so I know that this is going to be the subject of this in the coming days and weeks, and it's gonna dominate the story. And I feel bad because I think that the people that are suffering with this and lost their children's lives they're going to be lost in this because of the bizarreness of this story, and because it will be this. We really need to have compassion for the trans community. It will be the trans. This is my fear, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have compassion for people that are broken at all. But what I'm saying is the narrative will be, because this person was, abused by society, and that no one got them, and that's why they did this, and we need to have compassion for all of these people because they're hurting. It's like, no, they had a choice. They had a choice to make in how they choose to identify. They had a choice to make in their actions and what this person chose to do. She had a choice, and she chose badly. She chose wrong, and she was ultimately held accountable for that. But it's like, I just fear that will be the narrative now. Is, again, like, if this had been any white dude shooting anybody up, it would have been like, he's horrible, he's the worst person on the world, destroy, I'm glad he's dead, but the narrative will be, oh, we're so sad for this person in the trans community, we got to change this, and again, that's disrespectful to the people that lost their lives.
Okay. I think, which I see where your passion is coming from. And I wouldn't be surprised if it does come to that is the narrative, that it all comes to transgender people. I wouldn't be surprised. However, I do believe to some degree that when there are other active shooters that do these things, the same compassion and empathy or whatever goes to people with mental illnesses. And so when someone shows up, like you said,
but you can't say this person's mentally ill. See, that's the problem. You can say this white guy that went in and shot up a school, he's mentally ill. You cannot say that about a trans person, because the inference instantly is they are mentally ill because they're trans. You cannot say they're mentally ill because you're calling their transgender identity as an illness, and you cannot say that.
We'll see.
We will see.
I feel like there's a world where I think you can
separate the two.
But
the world will not. I believe that somebody could be trans and be mentally ill. But when they start to say this, they will dance around this, because the minute you say they were mentally ill, you're casting dispersions, and you are making the jump that they are also that their trans identity is mentally ill, is a mental illness. And no one will ever say that. No one can ever say that, because it undoes everything that they stand for and that they believe.
But then if that's the narrative that the news is going to sell, then what are transgender people going to say about this person? Are they going to say, well, they had every right to do that because the world is affected, they were bullied,
right? That might be the narrative. That might be what comes out. I don't know.
If that's what they choose to do, that's not going to sell them very well, because they're trying to get everybody on their bandwagon. And if they justify this person by saying, well, he was bullied, and so she had every right to do that, well, that's going to make them look really bad.
Right.
So that's why I believe that they will separate the two. They'll say, yes, this person was transgender, but they were also dealing with mental issues.
Anybody that takes anybody else's life in this matter is, regardless of your identity, is mentally broken. 100%. There is something miswired in these people that commit these acts. Absolutely. And I do think we should be able to separate those two. I think it's going to be murky on this one. I definitely think this one will be muddy in how they choose to do that. But I do think that this person was completely broken, and
well, obviously,
and
for anyone, any person, to walk into a school and shoot innocent victims and innocent people, there's something broken there, and that we can only issue to mental illness, right?
But I think that part of that mental illness, that thing, because everybody looks for cause in these things. You almost have to. You're like, because none of it makes sense. And so I do think that they'll look at it and be like, if the world hadn't just disenfranchised her and made her feel this way, then she wouldn't have done this. I do think that will probably be part of the narrative inside of this.
It's interesting that the world can be that against her, but then we can also turn around and say that the world is so for and so supportive of that.
Right now it is, man.
But she came from a place that obviously wouldn't have been a very overly supportive. If she went to this school, I'm assuming she didn't go to this school where they were like, you just be you, and
I don't know,
all this kind of stuff. So I can see where her past tells her that was the case, but we're also this, I think, was a elementary school. Yeah. And this woman was 28 years old.
Yeah, that's kindergarten through 6.
That's a really long time for her to have harbored some
So they
resentment.
did find out that she was a student of the school. And so I think that's where it could get murky in the more religion aspect of things, where people trans people could say
religion.
Well, they could.
You watch.
They could say, this school, because who knows what's in that manifesto that this woman left, or man, I'm not sure.
As a woman, she did not have. She still has women DNA. She identified as a man. Okay, but she did not have a surgery. From what I understand, this person was a female. I don't care what people say I am. It's like, I watched Piers Morgan debate this with people last night on TV, and it was fantastic. And he was like, this one lady he goes, well, why can't I identify as a black lesbian? Why can't I do that? Well, you just can't. Why not? You can identify as everything. Well, you can't. And he goes, well, how many genders are there? And this lady goes, 2. And he goes, I got you. And it was kind of because she was so liberal. And then when she admitted that, it undid everything she had said, which was so funny. I love interviews like that where someone walks themselves into a corner. But I mean, the reality is she had not to the best of my knowledge, had not genetically altered herself. Well, you can't genetically alter yourself. You can physically alter yourself. But this person was, they said, assigned female at birth. She was born a woman. And so that's what she is. I mean, I'm sorry. That's truth. And people don't want to hear truth, but that is truth. So
I think we just have to be careful not to wage our war on this specific topic, as opposed to being more that might run its course as a headline, but we can't let it run its course to make us so mad that we don't go back
to. You're doing exactly what you said is the narrative is going to be in the news. The victims aren't even noticed right now.
Right.
This whole conversation for the last 7-10 minutes has been all about the transgender.
I know.
That's
exactly
what the
be.
news is going to do.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is it could be, what's going to be interesting is the manifesto that was left. If the woman claims that there was something done at that school, whether it be a sexual assault, maybe it be something that's religiously compounded, or they were brought up in a home that was broken. All of those things are going to factor into what the public makes their idea of what caused the whole situation. Yes, I think transgender people could say, well, they were bullied. They were told by religion that they can't be who they say they are. That is true, but they're going to have to be very careful about how they frame that, because that's going to make them look bad, like they are justifying killing children is okay to do if that means that they don't stand for what you believe in. And if they stand on that, then that's going to take them down. So they have to be careful, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how, because right now it's still fresh.
Well, and two, like what I was saying, you were saying the whole physical, you can't alter your physical, whatever. Like if this woman was taking going through testosterone therapy to become a man, there is science that shows when you do that, you have to be careful, because it can, when you have too much of it, it causes aggression.
It
and if
messes
that's
up
the
guys
case,
who take like steroids and stuff.
And
like,
if that's the case,
good.
then they could say, yes, this was the first female shooter, but if she was going through the whole transition to become a male, that line of thinking, that aggression that most men or some men deal with, she was thinking the very same thing, and that could have led her to this.
Maybe it does something to cause people to halt or to question the approach to like allowing people to physically change themselves.
And two, it could be, I mean, honestly, we're assuming a lot here.
Yes.
And I hate that we are still talking about this 10 minutes in, because we haven't even considered the victims. But I think we need to keep in mind this could also change or it could start talks about, okay, we know that transgender, you're telling kids it's okay if you feel like you want to be a girl or you want to be a boy. This could start that conversation of transcending or going to what you think you need to be is not gonna help. Obviously, it didn't help this individual.
Right.
Obviously, she was still dealing with mental health issues. So just because you think transitioning is going to fix your problems, it won't, because she's a perfect example of that situation. So it could start those talks as well. Once again, I hate it for the parents and the families of the victims, because I think we were talking about this earlier. One of the little girls that died, she was the daughter of the main pastor there at that church. Right. And I can't even begin to understand or fathom what that family is walking through, because, you know, I was even thinking about when I went home last night, I was like, you know, it was a beautiful weekend. It was a beautiful weekend. And you know that those kids were outside, you know, they were having a great weekend, and they knew that Monday was coming up. They're going to have to go to school. Those parents dropped them off. Who knows if that little girl, Haley, that was her name. Right. If her dad was even there in the office, he could have heard the gunshots going off, especially if he was the main pastor of that church. That's something that's going to stay with him for the rest of his life.
He's in an interesting position, too, because he's theoretically the spiritual leader of this place. He is the spiritual leader of this place. And so he has this dual role, the role of grieving and the role of taking care of those others who are mourning. And two, he's been given tragically a platform where he's going to speak for a lot of Christians,
and he may not ask for it, but a lot of people are going to look to him, because if this is going to turn into a transgender versus religion situation, he's a Christian. And for a transgender person to murder his daughter, it's going to be interesting to know what him and his wife say. It's sadly a platform no parent wants to find themselves on, but
I am always interested.
It could build a bridge, or it could even pull people more apart. I
am always interested to see how, by and large, people with faith, even when they go through something horrific like this, especially like a pastor, many times will, even when it's hard, fall back on faith and fall back on forgiveness. Like forgiveness is vital in these situations for people moving forward, for themselves, you know, and because otherwise you stay trapped in that hate and anger. And even when that person is brought to justice, had this woman not been killed, it still doesn't solve things for people. It still doesn't bring this little girl back. It still doesn't change the hurt that they feel every day. But there is something super profound and super powerful when you hear somebody that we all would think has every right to not forgive extend forgiveness to someone, and it grabs people because it does. It's not the way of the world. It's definitely a way that is counter to the world.
Oh, for sure. I just started 2 days ago. I just started reading Mike Donaghy's book, Grace in the Gray, and it's about how to have conflict, but with grace. And I haven't gotten far. All I've gotten through is the introduction and the first chapter.
Just made me so mad I couldn't go on.
No. But one of the main insights that he has, and I so agree with it, is that we don't take the time to listen. We're too busy yelling at people, trying to get our viewpoint across. And that doesn't go far with people. What I would love to see, and this is like heaven perspective. What I would love to see is somehow this brings transgender people or people that are thinking about transitioning and bringing the Christian community together. And we listen and we see and we listen to, why is it that you feel like you need to be a different gender? Why do you think that will change your life? And then they can ask questions too, like, why do you stand for what you believe when God allows all of these terrible, tragic things to happen? But relationships can build when we start listening to one another. But if it's going to just be us yelling and screaming and saying, this is how it's going to be, and this is how they're going to do it, and you're wrong and you're right, it's not going to bring anything together. Like forgiveness, compassion, grace happens when we listen to one another. And I'm not saying that when we listen, we're saying it's okay that they think the way that they do. If anything, it's just understanding where they're coming from, trying to put empathy on ourselves, put ourselves in their shoes so that our words and our actions can have greater impact in changing.
Yep. Well, there you go. I love the perspective. And I'm trying to think, do we transition on? Oh, that was a bad transition. I didn't mean that.
I don't know. We can leave it. I think this is good.
Yeah, we'll let it go today. All right. That's going to do it for your Aftercast. Do you have any birthdays? Probably not.
Wouldn't be a good one to have a birthday.
Wouldn't be a good day for that.
We do have Corrine.
Hey, Corine!
Hey, Corine!
Happy birthday from all of us to you. Wish it was our birthday. We can party too. Hey!
She said... Bissy. Oh, it's not her birthday. It's Bissy.
Happy birthday from all of us. You. Wish it was her birthday. We can party too. Hey, Bissy.
Bissy, my sister and one of my best friends. She said Bissy is an Enneagram 7. She loves life and has a contagious energy that others feed off of. She is the sister that I can count on to join me on any adventure. She is brilliant and gifted in so many ways.
Love it.
Thanks for
sorry about
taking
that,
us out
Bissy.
like this, though.
Sorry about that, Corrine.
We brought it up and ended on a high note. Some positivity.
I think it's Corinne.
All right,
Corinne.
Happy birthday. No. All right, that's going to do it for your Aftercast. And as always, thanks for being a potty.